Report of Wiscasset flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, welcome everybody to a new year. We're starting off good, I hope. Okay, we have the approval of the treasurer warrants. Payroll warrants for December 20th, December 27th, and January 3rd.
I move that we approve the payroll warrants of November 22nd, November 29th, and December 6th, and December 13, 2019.
I think you repeat the dates again.
Did I get the wrong dates?
I believe so.
That's last week.
We're looking at the ordinance.
You want December 20th? It's okay.
It's a bad week.
It's the beginning of the year. It's all right.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let's do this again. I move that we accept the payroll warrants for the 20th of December, the 27th of December, 2019, and January 3, 2020.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Thank you, George.
Thank you. Accounts payable warrants for December 24th and January 7th.
I make a motion to approve the accounts payable warrants of December 24th, 2019, and January 7th, 2020.
Second that.
All those in favor? Thank you. The next one is the approval of the minutes of our meeting on December 17th. I received an email from Katie Bryant. There's a few corrections that she wanted to make. I will only deal with two of them, and I will let John explain the rest. But on page 3 of the minutes, her husband's name was wrong. His name is not John, it's Tom. And the spelling of the attorney is not John, it's Jon. So those two things need to be corrected. And before John speaks, I'd like, Ben, was there some corrections that you had in that,
To a different,
on the public hearing?
you get, under public comment.
Okay, under public comment, okay.
I had
We're gonna get back to that.
back to that.
Yes.
Okay, halfway down where it says Judy Colby asked that the OSC investigate the possibility of limiting hours. I would like to change that to read Judy Colby asked that the OSC investigate the possibility of limiting hours, comma, then Ryan's responded he didn't see any need to involve the OSC. I think it's important that both sides get put in the minutes. And I have one other question and comment on this one.
No need to involve the ORC.
Yeah, that part, okay.
Okay.
Above that, there is a line that says, the owner of the planned brewery has stated that the tasting room would be open until midnight. The comment isn't attributed to anybody, and I don't know whether it's a true statement or not. If it's going to be included, I think it should be attributed to somebody. The gentleman himself was not there to defend himself.
He did say it at a planning board meeting. And I don't know whether I had told someone. I usually don't put my comments in the minutes.
Well, if you,
I'm just saying,
whoever
it's an
made
accurate
the comment,
statement. I don't know
I
who
mean,
made the comment, but it's an accurate statement.
if we don't know who made the comment, then I don't think it belongs in the minutes.
Okay.
It's just hearsay,
Okay, so you want
in my
to
opinion. anyway.
remove that whole statement?
Yeah, that line, yes,
Okay.
that sentence.
Seeing we don't know who made it. Okay. Kim?
I do have a question on the Big Al's thing, but on the public comment, I was just wondering how come some public comments get into the minutes and other public comments do not get into the minutes?
I usually put them all in.
We usually put it all in there.
I think it's consistent that they're all in there. I could be wrong, but sometimes, you know. Okay.
Okay?
Did you say so? And then, the other thing, I didn't see the email that came today,
That's why I want John to speak with
but I
you.
had some questions on that. There were two things that I don't think that aren't the way I remember it. I thought, when Ben was wondering what would happen if there was an incident, like an explosion, I thought that he was talking about in that 60-foot buffer, and the minutes say 30 feet. And then there was another spot where, about the stairs, and I don't remember 64 feet. I thought that was,
I just listened to
60
the
feet.
both folks were ready.
okay. All right, that's enough.
Okay. John, go ahead.
Basically, as our attorney has stated, there's a big difference between minutes and motions, and the primary duty of the note taker or secretary is to make sure that the motions are correctly described. And in some ways, Jackie is almost covering too much of the conversation back and forth. It's very useful. It helps explain at some later point, you know, what went back and forth. But the key purpose of the minutes is to make sure that the motions are correctly stated, votes are recorded, and the best information. Obviously, everything that's presented gets at least mentioned in passing, and Jackie actually does a very good job. And that's a big difference between a transcript, which is a word-for-word rendition of everything that's spoken, the apologies, the coughs, you name it, and that's the document for those if there's a legal problem. So that's
Why don't we
the,
adopt them?
beg pardon?
You'd have to hire a professional stenographer to get every single word.
I understand that, but I thought by adopting them, like we make a motion, we adopt them,
The-
doesn't
the
that make
motion-
them like a
Yeah,
legal?
the motion is the legal thing. That's the primary responsibility.
I mean, when we adopt the minutes.
Yeah, but ultimately, the main purpose of the minutes is to record the votes and to make sure the motions are correctly stated. The rest is, it's nice, but if there's a legal issue, we've got meetings are recorded, and somebody can always make a transcript off the minutes. Anyway, that's, in a nutshell, that's what the attorney told me when I spoke to her this afternoon.
Then why do we even read them?
One, it's interesting, and two, it gives a flavor of
Well, it
the.
is interesting.
It is, and, you know, there's a fair amount of back and forth, and, for most purposes, that's adequate, and, but from a legal point of view,
They're meaningless.
no, I wouldn't say that. Still
I
good.
feel like that's what you just said.
Not really.
No.
Not really. But I mean, I see you might see it that way, but the fact of the matter is, the key information is the motion, the vote, and the rest is, if all else fails, you could go back and argue and go over the conversation both ways again and see, you know, would you or would you not make that same motion, or would you or would you not vote the same way? And that's as fair as I can explain it. I don't know if I did, but that's the way I see it. Okay?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Katie Bryant. So if our attorney is misquoted and just clerical errors, they won't get, and he requests that they're fixed, the answer is no?
Well, I'm gonna explain to you my thoughts, because I explained them to John. I received your email at 3 o'clock this afternoon, and I do know why, because the packets did not go out until Monday morning. All is said. But when I look at what you want corrected, the only thing that I will agree upon is your husband's name and your attorney's name at this point. If the board wants to consider this memo from you, letter from you, then the only other way I will change any vote to change anything is if we go back and we look at the tape. Because I don't remember 3 weeks ago. I don't. Jackie, I think, went through the tape again. I don't know if she can shed any light on it or not, but I'm not willing to make any of these changes.
Okay, well, our lawyer went through the tape too, and I went through the tape, so.
Well, I think your lawyer can want all he wants, unless he, that's my viewpoint. Let's go look at the board. Kim?
I haven't seen the memo, and if it's from an attorney, I'm not gonna vote on these
It's not
until
from
I
an
can.
attorney, it's from Kate Bryant herself.
All right, well, I haven't seen it, and she referred to an attorney, so I'm not gonna vote to approve the minutes. I would ask that we can table them until next meeting, so I have the opportunity to read the materials and to look at the tape.
That's your choice, Catherine.
I agree with you, and I think that the tape, the YouTube tape or whatever they call this thing back here, that takes down every word that we say in living color, is available to anybody who wants to look at it and listen to it. And I think that the Bryant's attorney is perfectly able to go to the website and click on the date he wants and get the coverage of the meeting where everything that is said is recorded.
But then why are we voting on these minutes if, that's the part that's not making sense to me after what John just said. If the only thing we need to vote on are the motions, like I would be comfortable voting on the motions, but if they're, like, not everything is written here, and apparently someone said there are changes, I don't remember 60/40, and I
You
remember
can't turn around
60.
everything that's being said in the minutes, that's the main issue. And I don't,
I guess
I
I'm
have a hard
just
time,
confused.
I have a hard time having lawyers and citizens asking us to change minutes for our meetings.
That's besides the point. I remembered something differently than it's in the minutes, and typically when I come in and say that's not the way I remembered it, then they'll say, okay, we'll make changes, and now we're reacting in a different way. Apparently there was a memo that I haven't had the opportunity to see, so.
Like I said, I'm not willing to make any changes. Ben, Jeff,
I just received this thing,
I know, we just received it.
Well, we just received our packets, like typically they come out the Thursday prior.
That's right, there was an error last week that they didn't go out on Thursday.
So everybody's a bit rushed.
That's correct, I agree with you.
So I would
I-
consider under the circumstances, we might be a little bit flexible and table the minutes for 2 weeks.
That's what I see too, Judy, is let's give it its due process. It is a citizen of Wiscasset that has brought this forward. Let's give it its due diligence, read through it.
Okay, I don't want to be me the only one that go and look at the tape. I want to make sure that the rest of the board is going. I know Ben does not have a computer.
Well, it's not that I couldn't find one, but why don't we just have our recording secretary look through it again? I don't, or did you already?
I have for most of it, but I just got this afternoon too, so I did go through some of it.
I mean, it's pretty well detailed, page 3, paragraph 1, and
Some of it's right, some of it's wrong.
All right, let's table, I agree, let's table it. I will make an effort to look at
Me
the
as well.
tape.
I will as well.
And for the next meeting, can we also get something, John, can you get something from MMA that, so that I can know as a board member what the legal value of these minutes are after I vote on them?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry, I need a motion to table the minutes.
I move we table the minutes for 2 weeks.
A second.
All those in favor? Okay. The next one is presentation of awards, and we do have one. Matt Huber. Come on up here, you too, Ted, you can hand it to him, you can present this to him.
Where's his? He never missed a day last year.
We're gonna let Ted present this to Matt.
Matt, thank you.
But he deserved it too. He was, thank you.
Matt, You're the quiet guy, more so.
Turn around nice and pretty so that the press can take a
Perfect
picture.
attendance over here.
Hey,
Sir, you did.
This is a good photo, guys, pay attention. Thank you. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's not easy to do.
No, it's
Yep.
not. Okay, we have no committee appointments, we have no public hearing. Oh, Ed, sit back. Now it's time for public comment. At each regular selectman meeting, there'll be time devoted to any resident or taxpayer of the town of Wiscasset to address the selectmen regarding any item that is not on the agenda for that meeting. Comments will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Okay, Ed.
Ed Polobarczyk. My apologies to the board, I'm not as fast as I used to be. I was caught off guard by an action taken by the board at the last selectmen's meeting. And the subject is our solar project. Up until the last meeting, the solar project was going to cover 50 acres at the airport. And within 3 or 5 minutes at the last selectmen's meeting, it became 70 acres. And that kind of caught me off guard, and all kinds of questions going through my mind. And I apologize, I probably should have asked the board to table it so we get some understanding. That increase from 50 to 70 acres is a 40% increase. That's a significant amount. And to my way of thinking, the value of the option increased 40%. And there were no questions from the board members about, hey, should we get an additional fee? This is probably worth at least another $1,000. No questions from the board. There was also an opportunity here, and there were no questions again about reimbursement for future consulting fees or legal fees that we're going to get into as the contracting work develops here. And because the solar project people wanted to increase the size of this thing, it was also another opportunity to say, hey, maybe we ought to get $1,500 per acre or $2,000 per acre. An opportunity to negotiate to better off Wiscasset, and it all happened so quick. And I'm sorry, I didn't think fast enough to ask some of those questions. It's a lost opportunity. The increase in size kind of bothered me. We went from 50 to 70 acres, a 40% increase, and the more I thought about that, the more I concluded that 50 acres was not enough to make this venture profitable, to reduce the payback period to a reasonable amount of time. And just this past week or two, and I'll use as an example, the Blaine House. The state has paid $63,000 to install solar panels on the Blaine House. It's now public knowledge that the payback period for that $63,000 is 42 years, with panels that will last probably half that time. A bad financial adventure. Government doesn't have to worry about it. 20 years from now, somebody else will have to deal with these panels. And the answer then is either remove them, and that probably costs, let's just guess that, say 20% of the original cost, maybe $12,000, or buy another set for $63,000, and maybe they've gotten cheaper in 20 years. Still a bad financial decision. We increased the acreage, but didn't change the rating. It's still 10 megawatts. And to my way of thinking, this is an attempt to generate more energy to shorten the payback period. That's what it seemed to be, to me, all about. However, when you increase the acreage by 40%, you also increase the cost by about 40%. So you got 20 more acres of panels. So I'm not sure that there is much of a change, if any, to that payback period. With the cost going up 40%, if the project was originally $15 million, and I believe that's what I heard sometime in the past, I don't know if that's a good number now. But a 40% increase takes that to 21 million. That's a much bigger project. And the question keeps, how is the payback period changed? Well, Wiscasset now gets $70,000 a year. 20 more acres, $1,000 per acre, $70,000 per year for 20 years. $1,400,000 over a 20-year period. That's a hard number to walk away from. However, if this is a $20 million project now, and after 20 years, those panels have deteriorated or degraded to where they're no longer functioning the way we expect them to, and we're stuck with removing them with about 20% of the cost, that's a $4 million bill. So we would have got in $1.4 million and be stuck with a liability for $4 million to get rid of them. Even if it's only 10% of the project, you still got $2 million. It's a loser. So we need to really understand what goes on with this project and what you're committing Wiscasset to in the future. I'm not likely to be here 20 more years.
Who is?
Many of us may not be. Well, it wasn't all that long ago where we remember Y2K. And it's 20 years later all of a sudden. So where I'm going is we need to be very cautious here. I don't want to see the future people of Wiscasset stuck with a $2 or $4 million bill, and I have no idea what that is. I do believe with 70 acres of panels, it's a substantial cost. One other thought, suddenly now, Wiscasset's not dealing with two companies, BPA and Synergy. You guys agreed to do business with 4 companies, 2 new ones. Maine Solar Development LLC and MEVS LLC. And I want to stress the LLC, it's Limited Liability Company. Limited Liability Company. So my concerns immediately are, do these 2 new companies, and I'm kind of expecting that they would become the owners of these facilities, do they have the financial condition to be able to remove those panels as time goes on? We talked about some kind of surety, some kind of bond. It's talk. We haven't seen anything on the options. Again, we had an opportunity to revise those options to put Wiscasset in a better position. We missed that opportunity. Please be careful with this thing. I would like us not to get stuck with all of this. And my favorite comment, in God we trust, all others bring data. And we really need to look at that data here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the public comment? Yes, Chief.
I know you don't hear from me often, but Larry Hazeltine, Chief and a resident. I just wanted to express to the board, I've been here a year and a half roughly, and I still love my job. And but I just wanted to point out a couple things that I thought was important. After the first full year, 2019, I got to be able to research some numbers, and our arrests, I think, I really truly believe that the citizens of Wiscasset really have no idea what we do as a police department. I know I've seen a lot of comments on Facebook, public social media, about how we sit in the office and whatnot. But our arrests are up just over 100%. We handled just over 6,400 calls last year, which averages out to be about 18 calls a day. And that's not counting the calls that the county covers when we're short-staffed. So I just wanted to bring that up. Since 2015, the town of Wiscasset has hired 11 full-time police officers. And in my book, that's a lot. That's a high turnover. We had no turnover last year. Right now, we have half of the department are Wiscasset residents, and they enjoy being here. We have one officer that is looking elsewhere, and he's our most recent graduate of the academy. I'm hoping that the upcoming negotiations will maybe convince him to stay. But I thought that was important for you guys to know, because I thought that was kind of a lot over a 4-year period, hiring 11 full-time police officers. I'd also like to thank Ted, publicly thank him. I mean, Every time the police department needs public works, he's right there. Yesterday morning, I woke up to a dead battery in my cruiser, and he was right there and took care of it. And I think it's important for you guys to know as well, as a department head, I haven't had any problems working with any department head in Wiscasset. We have a good working relationship with Public Works, EMS, even code enforcement. We've worked together on a few calls. But I just thought something positive. I think everything's going in the right direction, and I know we're going into budget time, but however it goes, and I won't be discouraged and looking to leave. So,
Thank you, Lynn. Anyone else with public comment? Yes.
Following up on what Ed said, when I agreed to this, it was with the idea that we were gonna pull in $1.4 million or whatever, but it wasn't gonna cost the town a penny.
Right.
That includes at the end dismantling it, so on and so forth. I mean, we haven't signed any final papers or anything, but those are important questions, and
No, I mean, basically, as I explained at the last meeting, the two new names are because they split the project into two 10 megawatt options. I can show you all the numbers in, and the $2,000 we got still was divided 1,000 one way, 1,000 for the other project. Nothing basically has changed. They're going through a lot of permitting. In fact, I was on a conference call with Rick Tetra and myself on the Wiscasset side, and Steve Barrett, we met him. And they're going through the national EPA people to make sure everything is taken care of, submitting yet another report. And one decision I did get through was they were talking about a 16-foot fence with razor wire on top, and I said, I don't like razor wire. I came from an environment where they used to put broken bottles on the top of the walls. And they said, well, we could go up another foot and no razor wire. And I said, I'm good with that. So that bit I did get. The rest is grinding through the process on all levels. They've got to do site review, they've got to do this, surveys, you name it. They're spending serious money. And what they said to us at the very, very beginning, your expense will be when your attorneys look over the final document. And that final document is quite a ways in the future.
But we don't have to sign that final document.
No.
We're not committed to anything.
We need everything, we need the math to work and so on. And regarding the economics of this, a lot of it depends on the tax credits from the feds and the state. And of course, the fed's not going to give tax credits to the state of Maine. So that was just a show project. I don't think, like many government projects, there's ever a real payback period anyway. So that's my 2 cents worth. If that's okay.
well, those last 2 cents kind of make me worry. But that's my feeling. I mean, if it's gonna cost us anything, that I'm not gonna vote for it. We had a solar proposal before the board a few years ago, that after 7 years, the town was gonna be asked to pay back $70,000, $80,000. Obviously, no way it could support something like that.
No. And the same people that signed the original agreement are signing these two separate entities. They're both 10 megawatt utilities, but for tax purposes and whatever, some of the credits are combined to 10 megawatts. And so they want to trap that. If they combine the two, they wouldn't get as much grant and tax forgiveness. So
We take it for granted that expanding it from whatever acreage to,
same acreage.
was it the same or more?
Same.
He says there's more.
I don't need it, but I'll show you the maps, they're the same.
The original option was for 50 acres. That's what you signed originally. And the paper that you agreed to at the last meeting says up to 35 from 2 different companies. That's 70. So I see it as going from 50 to 70. from the paper you've given.
Yeah, I would dig out the information for you.
I have it here.
No, I know, I just.
Okay.
Well,
I look over.
my follow-up to that was gonna be, none of us asked me a question, I took it for granted that the airport manager, the airport committee would be on board with expanding it if it's more acreage. Did that happen? Are they aware of it?
Well, yeah, Rick is always, he's involved in every part of this. The airport committee, I haven't spoken to them. I can't, I mean, you're welcome to come along, obviously, as I've always said. Any of the meetings, any of the phone calls, I can call you every time there's anything going on, I'm more than happy to do it.
I'm more concerned that the board is fully aware of what this is all about, and at least asking the questions.
I just want to point out that my support for the project is not based on finances or economics. It's based on Wiscasset embracing an opportunity to provide clean energy in a time when I expect to be around in 20 years, God willing, and I've got children who aren't even adults yet. And so, to me, the future is not about these dollars and cents. It's about, are they going to have a climate that they can live in here in Maine or anywhere? We've got people, mass migrations on the planet right now because of climate change, believe it or not. And that's going to impact all of us. So, yes, it's nice that we're actually going to collect money from these people. They're going to pay to rent the acreage, but I think that my support is more based on the environment and the future.
Thank you, Kim. You've given me a couple of topics for future meetings. Thank you.
I just want to make sure that we are still in a situation that we can opt out of this program.
I mean, we have to accept, well, first off, FAA, everybody else has to accept that this is a viable project. One of the backstops is FAA is allowing the use of airport space, which is non-aeronautical, for the purpose of getting return on the investment, which currently is a big fat zero. And that's why the FAA is in agreement with this, as are many of the airports around the country. And FAA, like I said, needs a return on the investment. And
Or they're not
unfortunately,
gonna go for it.
yeah, and unfortunately, and they won't go for it if there's anything they don't like.
Correct.
And there's plenty of aeronautical space for the activity that we're expecting in the next 20 years. And so this is, at this point, with the technology we have, the time we're in, this is a way of getting some money out of the territory. Plus, it will save some maintenance and trimming that whole area that no longer would have to be done. That would be a matter for the operating company. So that wasn't factored in any numbers I was mentioning. So anyway, that's where we stand. Ed, I'm more than happy to show you anything I have. You can talk to anybody you want, and I'll open the door.
Well, I was just concerned when you said trimming the area. I mean, this is matured forest. I don't believe this area gets a whole hell of a lot of trimming.
Well, it has to get trimmed for height purposes, obviously, but I wouldn't say it's new timber, but it's not very big timber because it's in inhospitable sloped area, miserable to maintain. So having that drop down at their expense is fine with me, and very much on the finishing up the termination. All that stuff is firmly in the responsibility of the operating company. And that's a biggie. One of the first things the FAA said to me, make sure they'll take everything away when it's over.
But again, I'm asked the same question, and yes, again, right now, we are not liable for anything at this point in time.
No, we don't allow anybody else plan to use that space.
Okay, that's all we've done.
That's all.
And when it comes time to them to do their project, at that point in time, we still have the opportunity, if we choose to back out of the program,
There's,
no matter what,
yeah, and that's why it's very important for
and
them.
not cost us anything to back out of that program.
And that's why they're very eager to keep the public engaged. I mean, Steve Barrett has been here many times, and as I said, the conference call we had today was Steve Barrett and the top guy, Chad, how do you pronounce his name?
I know that some of us board members may not be here within the next 2 or 3 years, so I'm encouraging whoever sits in these seats to make sure they know what's going on out there and, make good decisions, that they're given the full information to be able to make good decisions on whether we go forward with this project or not. Yes, Ed?
Judy, when I read the option, I have the same questions you have. How does that option legally bound Wiscasset? And I would suggest a legal review.
Thank you. Well, we will have a legal review at one point or another. I'm not going to sign anything unless I know it's not going to cost the taxpayer Wiscasset anything. That's just how I feel.
My concern was, are you already committed with the way the option is written?
We're committed to a point, but I don't think we're bound. I'm hoping we're not bound.
That's why I suggested a legal review, because I'm not sure either.
Thank you, Ed. Anybody else with a comment regarding this?
Not
Yes.
just, but one chief has the time, but not with,
Anything on the sea energy? Anything more?
We really do need to stay on top of it.
Yes.
My
Whoever's
daughter
sitting in
will
these seats
call the
needs to
lawyers.
stay on top of this project and not let it go, lift up the rug and throw it underneath. They need, whoever sits in these seats needs to stay on top of this project. Because I think if it's gonna cost the taxpayers money, then there's a problem.
Well, he's raised concerns we need to listen to. We just found out that we have to pay $61,000 for the downtown project, which we didn't know we were going to have to pay.
Yes, that's later on in the
Yes, but it's just an example that we need to pay attention.
Right. Well, and some things are put over us that we don't know about.
Yeah, we did know, but that's a different part of the meeting.
Yes.
I think it's a good example to use at this point.
Yes, Catherine.
I just wanted to comment on the chief's small report. I would hope that the people in Wiscasset realize what a great Wiscasset Police Department this town has. I've been here, it'll be 40 years this year, and I have worked in law enforcement prior to being here, and we have top-notch people, and the chief does a magnificent job, his officers do a magnificent job, and the interaction between, and the rapport between department heads, I think is key to a lot of it, but it's the due diligence and the community policing, they're just top-notch. I just wanted to make sure I had time to say that, and I did. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, let us go on. Department head or committee chair, wastewater treatment plant. Rick, you're up.
Former
I
superintendent.
could say, you've retired.
Okay, so,
Semi-retired, but,
well, your name's here, that's why I said
I
that.
know.
Thank you for coming back.
So, in December, the DEP came down and did their final inspection, and I believe you have a copy of the report. It was very favorable to just send that out. The other thing I had on the agenda is, I talked with Bruce, the CEO, the other day, and grease traps haven't been inspected lately. So I'd like to find out if the board would agree that either Bruce or the people from the wastewater department could inspect grease traps, and we'd work together to make sure those indeed occur.
Oh, definitely,
Absolutely.
definitely.
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer.
You need a motion for that?
It would be helpful just to keep for clarity, I think.
Well, I'll make the motion that whatever Rick wants with these grease traps, he has permission to do it.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor? You got your,
Thank you very
you got
much.
your grease traps.
There we go.
What a deal.
Thanks, Rick.
Okay, unfinished business, this is the one. MDOT, utility receivable agreement, future Main Street improvement state. Win number 02184.3.00, estimated cost $33,175.
That's the downtown one.
That's the downtown,
The manhole.
the manholes.
If you recollect, we couldn't find the paperwork that the board had ever.
Yeah, right.
But it had been signed.
It was signed by Marion in 2018, March 2nd.
Yep.
But it was never brought to the board, is that correct? That's why we never voted on
That's the only point I was making, sometimes these expenditures just show up.
it. I know. Okay,
We weren't aware of it for budgeting purposes. Suddenly there's this $33,000 we were expected to pay, and it's kind of, what is this? And then, oh, that's just what we do when we pay it. Huh?
But that wasn't a main DOT problem, that was a town manager and select board communications problem.
Well, a little bit of both. I
So,
think. Bit of both.
Both, really. There certainly was a communication problem at this level. But, I mean, I went to all those public hearings and the state never said we were gonna have to pay any money for that project.
I don't remember it ever being brought to the board, and we were quite heavily in with the downtown project, and I don't ever remember. I think I remember at one time somebody said that DOT was gonna take care of it,
Yeah.
so I understood.
Right, that was what was,
That's-
that's what was told
Yes.
to us, the committee as well.
Yes, that's what I thought I heard, that they were gonna take care of it, then all of a sudden, this came about. But this never came before the board.
No, that's what I looked into, and I appreciate that.
I brought it up with John several times, and he and I both get the same emails back from people that, quote unquote, that ship has sailed. So,
How does B on this relate to A or doesn't it?
It's basically an extension. I found out about the 33,000 that we were supposed to have paid by June of 2019, so I managed to get it pushed back a year because we didn't budget for it. So now we still owe it, but we got another year to pay. And that's what the purpose of.
Another year is in the upcoming budget process.
Correct.
we can fit it, right, we can make it the budget line.
Okay, we need a motion for, A, MDOT utility receivable agreement that we never approved the first time around.
So you want a motion of approval for this and then
Then
a
that's
motion
gonna be,
to
yes,
pay it?
then the extension.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion that we approve the Maine DOT utility receivable agreement in the amount of $33,175.
Okay,
And I'll second that.
all right, all those in favor?
I just want to say, if this had been brought up in a timely manner, I might have voted the other way. The money's been spent, and we
Yes.
don't have any choice.
We have to. All right, now this one is to accept the extension. Of the payment.
Okay.
Rain and water, the serial numbers don't match on the WIN number.
Oh,
Transposition.
3443, yeah.
Thanks.
Well, that'll be, which one's right?
Well, the papers say 4-3,
43.
yes.
They both say 43.
Yes, they do, they both say 4-3.
So
So it was
43
a clerical error on here, thank you. Okay, I need a motion to amend the end date, please.
I will make a motion that we approve an end date of June of 2020,
July 15th.
July 15th of 2020, in the amount of $33,175.
all those in favor? Thank you. Okay, update on interviews for wastewater treatment plant engineering services.
Yeah.
Rick and I, and Rob, and Chuck Appleby was moderator, interviewed the three of the companies that had applied to provide engineering services. The companies were Dirigo, Wright Pierce, and Albers. We had a scoring matrix and so on because with different grants involved, people scrutinized the interview process. So currently Rick is, and you can talk a little more about it, currently Rick is negotiating with one of those companies, and I would expect very shortly you'll present, or we present your conclusions to the board for their acceptance. And I beg your pardon, Jeff,
No.
you were part of that too?
Right.
Yes, you were.
Thank you.
So that, do you want to add anything or to that?
Not unless anyone has any questions, but I do have a question on the one before, the DOT project.
Yes.
What budget are we deciding to pay that out of?
I don't think we're gonna use yours.
The new,
No.
the new budget that we're preparing right now.
Not mine?
Right.
Thank you.
And then what's a separate article, isn't it?
For a budget, yeah.
Somehow to do a separate article on that one, right? Okay. All right, so you don't need any, motion on the interview?
Not at this point, because we're doing a little bit of final negotiation with one of the companies. Once that's, I don't know whether you know.
Can I make any comments on
Yes,
it? It's
Don't, you know, we're still negotiating.
correct. It was a great process. Chuck Appleby was just wonderful. Rick, as always, was right there, you know, pointing us in the right direction, and it was a great process. So thank you.
I'm pretty pleased with
Yeah.
what we ended up with.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, update of review of airport planning and engineering services, RFQs.
Again, looking for requests for qualifications from qualified companies. We only had two applicants, and you remember we opened the two envelopes at the selectmen's meeting, from the last one, the one before. Anyway, we had Stantec, who are the people who have been providing services for Wiscasset for quite a while, and the other applicant was from Aroostook County, AVIEST, A-V-I-E-S-T. So Jeff has reviewed the material, Rick has reviewed, Tetra, who's here, thank you. And I have reviewed the two applications, and we haven't formally decided. I thought might as well, since we kind of had an abbreviated process that we done in a public meeting with the Board of Selectmen. And we all agreed that our recommendation was Stantec for various reasons, one of which is we're in the middle of a number of complex situations, repairs and grants and solar. And we thought the learning curve would be a lot shorter using Stantec. Much as we liked AVS, they were pretty good too, much smaller operation, not as well established, but as I said, the relationship with Stantec and their depth of services, we thought would be a better match. So if you'd like to make a recommendation.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'd like to make a recommendation that the board accepts Stantec.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay.
Why change horses?
Yeah, well, if it were a more settled environment, that might be one.
Agreed.
Because we've got a lot of things going on at the airport. The next one is.
The Main Street Pier inspection update.
This is very straightforward. It's just, the pier is a busy place, and I didn't have time to look at it during the summer operational season, but I've had, I've had Maine Municipal Risk Management review it, and we, Ted and his crew have put in the wire mesh around the outside of the pier at the recommendation of the Maine municipal people. We also didn't want to continue to have vehicles on the pier, and again, Ted and his crew put together a post to prevent vehicular access without prior approval. So, and the ADA ramp, which is part of the ramp, would be segregated and maintained appropriately. We also have extension cords that are not within code, that will have to be fixed before the operational season, the operating season, in violation from whenever, but it cannot be allowed to continue. It opens the town to significant exposure. All the wiring, it's been put in place over the years. No idea who inspected what, and again, that's something that would, I mean, the pier has burned before, so there's no reason to allow it to operate
Without
it being inspected. The DEP has not examined this operation. They don't like a lot of stuff over the water, and to my knowledge, there's been no inspection to make sure again that we're within rules and regulations. They're very twitchy about anything near water, anything
overboard, right?
And then, so that'll be scheduled. Liability concerns going forward. I mean, I mentioned at the last board meeting there was the unauthorized sale of Christmas trees. You know, that's definitely a no-no. Commercial activity shuts down in the middle of October. At ATM that's been sitting there for years, that's technically a business, no license that I can find. And I see that as significant. Plus, I mean, there's wiring that goes with that, any little oomph. And Christmas.
So John, when I was reading those emails as far as the ATM, they haven't been paying the electricity, they haven't.
I don't know what they've been doing. And that's, they'll have to find out. And again, if it's a business that's operating without a license, then they have to go through the process like any business.
Correct.
And so, again, people just take it for granted. And when I look at it, I say, whoa, wait a minute. Like I barely even noticed the thing because it's so small. Anyway, that's that one. And then they had a Christmas festival event down there, which was quite big and successful. And using public space for something like that does require approval from the town, and I didn't know about it until pretty much the day of the event. So those are the kinds of things we have to tidy up, and I'm calling this housekeeping at this point. So that's what I have, just to inform the board that I want to, keep it.
The only question I have on any of those is the DEP inspection. I mean, we've got businesses that have been down there for 20 years or so.
Yeah, but sometimes they operate under the radar, and I mean, I've dealt with DEP, well, for all sorts of reasons, but also down in Booth Bay Harbor, and they are very, very stringent about waterfront businesses and all the related.
Well, the stuff's been there for 20 years, they haven't been stringent yet. Are we looking for trouble?
No, but I want to avoid trouble. Because if they did a random check, if there was a complaint of some sort, we'd have no defenses.
All right, it seems to me that the inspection at least ought to be held before we offer any licenses up for this year.
Oh, totally agree, And so.
The sooner the better for some of those businesses, so they would know.
And the structure, integrity, everything should be.
So anyway, that's where I am, and I'll proceed. I've developing a lot of relationships within DEP, as you might imagine, over the last few months.
Yeah, with Hubers.
Yeah.
Okay, new business. We have a quitclaim deed for Harold E. Cole, map U10
grant a quick claim deed for Harold E. Cole.
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Thank you. The next one is to review of airport hangar leases. John?
Yeah, we had an inspection, I believe it was August, the FAA came to the airport. And I spoke to Mr. Pantelli at length, and then Rick went through the operational aspects of the airport. And finally, we got the full report, and some of the concerns, we haven't addressed them all, but some of the concerns related to the airport is that there were some leases that didn't meet the standards that the FAA required, and some of these things have been there for, I won't say forever, but many, many years. And now that they've examined them, they're concerned about the term of the leases. Some of them run more than 49 years. There were 2 leases that were granted for development of a hangar, and the hangar was never built. And one lease provides several acres to develop hangars, only one of which was built. And so tonight I'm asking that the board, and I responded to that. And after Rick Tetra, Kathy, and myself went through the leases and so on and so forth, we basically found that the Falveys and the Muchmores, Mr. Falvey's here, were not meeting the conditions of the leases. So I said I would bring them to the board next month to terminate those leases. And there's one non-aeronautical tenant whose lease should be adjusted in line with current markets for real estate as opposed to aeronautical use. And so that's something we deal with shortly. But in the meantime, the 2 leases will satisfy the FAA as we go through the long list of other aspects. Do you want to add to that, Rick?
If I may, I brought some handouts.
Okay.
Oh, if you wouldn't mind passing those around that way. They're all,
Are they all the same?
yeah, and then there, those need to go. Very well.
Sorry.
Everybody.
Yeah, I have this.
Where's Mr. Falcon? Where's Richard? You see what I'm
Okay. At some point, can I speak here while I'm here and?
Oh, absolutely.
Before I read this possibly?
Go ahead.
All right, with these folks.
Excuse me, how many of these did you give out?
Are we missing one?
There's one, it's written on.
Yeah.
Oh, they're all written on.
Okay.
That's,
We need one more.
Okay.
Or maybe 2 more.
okay. We got one more.
Okay. If you go to Ben and, yeah, thank you.
Don Falvey. It's appropriate for me to speak at this point.
Chair, yeah, I believe it is at the chair.
This is in defense of my lease at the airport. My
Please state your name.
Donald Falvey, Falvey,
Okay,
Falvey LLC.
thank you.
Not quite sure where to begin. For the folks that don't realize it, I'm the gentleman that built the first large set of hangars that you drive to the airport, 2 twin blue sets that I believe worked out quite successfully for the airport. and hopefully somewhat for the town, because I believe it generates a fair amount of revenue every year, and has worked out, and nice looking operation. During that process, there was considerable interest in larger hangars, and I could work with Post Associates at the time and the FAA to put on that piece of property. So I worked with the town at that point to gain a lease that is in question here today. And was excited about doing it because the first one was successful, and it's the kind of thing I do. I'm a general contractor. Became very, very expensive and took quite a bit of time to get it rolling. Jumping ahead, I had well over $300,000 invested in the site work and the engineering. So where the project's at today, which is at subgrade with crushed stone and the right types of crushed stone to accommodate concrete. Some of it has been taken without my permission. Some of the materials there. Just a little side note. During the process, halfway through spending a tremendous amount of money and time, it became apparent that the Navy base was going to close down and move out of town. I just couldn't believe that was going to happen, and watch the Navy consolidate their assets and give up this base. I was halfway through the project, and I said to myself, and talking to my wife Cindy and the family and people involved, and the engineers involved, probably some of the airport committee members that were supporting me, I didn't want to leave the project half finished at that point. Probably should have, but I didn't want to do it. I had an obligation to the town to keep the thing moving forward and hope that it would materialize, and I still hope it will. I brought along lots of paperwork, some pictures to show anybody that's interested in the process, what went on there. And I realize it doesn't look like a lot now. So I got to the point where the site's ready for the 3 buildings, large buildings, one of which I have a building permit paid for with the town of Wiscasset, the sanitation permit paid for that building. Not to mention all the state and federal and wetlands approvals and stuff that came prior to that. All that stuff in the system, maybe they've expired by now. We'd have to review them when we finally get a chance to build one of these buildings. Somewhere along the line, the town needed a spot for the snow removal building that's there now. In the process of the airport committee and the town selectmen at that time, they were kind enough to reduce my lease payment down to $1,000 a year. At this point, I've given the town $24,003 in lease payments for something that hasn't produced anything on my $300,000+ worth of investment there. I'm hopeful that something will come along. There is one possibility that I've been told year after year that he wants a hangar there, and we're just waiting for his business in town to materialize, and then he can have his hangar with his nice plane. I don't know if that'll happen or not. I keep hoping somebody else will come along. Backing up on the Brunswick thing, the 2 folks that I had for King Air side planes vanished because Brunswick was giving away hangars. Some of you folks might realize that at that point, and that just, you can imagine the end result. Nothing could happen there. I can't compete with that. So anyway, the snow removal building got built on land that I had all ready for, which in my mind was roughly, probably that part of the land was worth $40,000 of investment, portion of the investment of my total piece of $300,000+. So I feel like, that was a show of good faith on my part, and reciprocating for the town giving me a reduced rate, to $1,000 a year for the lease. So we were working together on those things at that point. Shortly after that, a gentleman came along and wanted a spot for his hangar. And he only wanted a single hangar, and my spot that was left really accommodated a much larger hangar, but because I wanted to show the town I was trying to do something, and the FAA, I guess, I didn't realize they had that big insight in this whole thing. I was negotiating with him on that, trying to get enough money for that portion of my commitment to the project, and he kept threatening, well, I'm going to go over here and lease land from the town. I'm going, what land? I had no idea that the town had another piece of land that they could offer to people for a hangar right near mine, so being leveraged on that issue. I'm like, is the town going to work with me on this thing to get this thing off the ground, or am I going to keep finding out that, I'm not getting the help and the support? So, along with that, as you remember, the economy really went down the tubes, and the airport activity in general just started to decrease and decrease. I feel a lot better in the last year or so, especially in the last few months, knowing we got somebody really strong on running the airport, and we got a town manager that listens and works with me instead of fights me. 3 or 4 years ago, I went to the town manager and said, Jim Gallagher, my estate attorney and attorney for writing these leases and a bunch of other things, said, at this point, we probably ought to ask the town to work out something with you on your investment there. So I went to the town manager and I said, what do you think about an option of getting somebody to estimate or review how much I put into this project, and I'll come up with some percentage of what town can pay me if and when somebody else actually develops this, because I'm obviously not going to live forever. Somehow she took that, hired Bernstein and Schur down in Portland, and kicked it around and acted like it presented to the town that I was doing something detrimental to the town, instead of considering that I'm going to take a loss, and I spent all this money on this project, and I'm offering it at something we can negotiate at a reduced rate, so I can get something back on it. That's like plan A or B at this point. I'm much more interested and encouraged with what I see as potential. The people I could be dealing with now to keep this thing alive and hopefully turn into something long alive and get some hangars built over there. And then when I didn't get a lease build this year, I introduced myself to the new town manager, and I was greatly relieved to find somebody new. Can't emphasize that enough. Maybe I shouldn't be saying that. It really hurt. It's very stressful before this meeting. And John was informative enough to tell me the FAA was reviewing all the leases and other matters there, and they've never contacted me, but he said that the FAA was reporting I wasn't living up to my obligation in the lease. And my feeling is I wished he'd taken me around there and talked to me about it when I wasn't quite as stressed out as I am at this point here, and I apologize. There's a lot of frustration after all these years because of the expense of the situation. But I feel like I've done everything I could possibly do to keep that thing going and paid my leases on time every year. Took the initiative when there was any opportunity whatsoever and got another second building on that piece of land. And we're trying to keep alive this other individual that keeps saying every year that he wants a hangar as soon as his business gets established and takes off. At that point, up to that, now that's the only thing I've got going for me, other than the effort to keep trying as deep as I am into this thing, probably the Marine in me, don't know enough to quit. And I don't know who else would pick it up and understand the meets and bounds and the grades and the types and the whole situation there. It's well engineered, and water's got to run properly when it's finished. And sure, with enough new money and surveyors, it could be marked out. But I feel like I'm the guy that understands the site, and as long as I'm around, as long as I'm willing to pay the $1,000, and as long as the Board of Selectmen, if they're willing, can talk to the FAA and saying, look, this is the guy that put the money into it and understands it. We're trying to keep this thing moving and develop it. Why would you want to throw them away? So I would really like any questions, if anybody on the board had some, or if they would like to see any of the paperwork that I skimmed through and mentioned, because I got lots of paperwork after all these years. And I was just kind of hoping that I could get another bill for December 1999 for another year's lease. I don't want one, I want many more leases, and sooner than, I'm alive. And I noticed on the lease that I did sign with the town, it was signed in 2005 for 20 years. So I'm kind of wondering if that would help support any discussions with the FAA, if they don't want to talk with me directly about this, if we can say, the lease is for, I guess that comes up to 2025. Maybe I'm wrong on that, that's the one I've got in front of me. I know we worked on a couple of addendums after that, but they never got signed for one reason or another. So please ask any questions. I don't know that my wife's gonna tell me when I'm driving back to Pittsburgh, you forgot to tell them this, that, and the other thing.
I've just got a question. I go back to 2011, being on the board, and quite frankly, I don't know what he's talking about Bernstein and Shore.
I don't
It's
know.
nothing that is it since then, since 2011, this legal?
This came up probably, I got the newspaper article there, actually 5 copies I could put around, I think it's about 5 years ago or 4 years ago.
So I guess, where did the appropriation come for that legal action to take place? Who said that it could happen? I mean, am I making any sense?
I know where you're going, but I don't remember it, and I was back on the board, I was on the board back then too. I think what I need to know is exactly, what are you asking?
Right.
I need a bill for the next year's lease, and I normally have them sent to me. I have, I think, 15 or 18 of them there on paperclip, but this year I didn't get one.
Yeah, because when you normally would get it, we received the communication from the FAA. It was a multi-page, 4 or 5 pages of leases. I've never seen them before, and I know you and I had the conversation where you were explaining how much you put in to the site, and that everything going as well as you could, and the market conditions worked against you, both Naval Air Station and just the plain economy, no pun intended on that one. And I know that you're probably looking at various asset classes, and like you said to me, you'd like to get some sort of return for what you put in. And one approach you thought might work would be if someone at some future point were to develop on what you've already produced, that you would get some arrangement that would reimburse you for some of your investment. Now, again, I knew the FAA had looked at the airport. I had no idea with a long list of these leases. I mean, there's one, page and a half, about 15 different leases, you're there. And so your your lease was one of the ones that was targeted, and much more, I think, is the other one. And so I communicated with Mr. Pantelli of FAA, and I said, well, because after Rick had reviewed the leases with me, and Kathy Honorado, who's my assistant, found all the paperwork, and these were the ones that stood out as being unqualified, for want of a better term, to continue the lease, and that's why we didn't take.
Was it unqualified for the lack of activity
Yeah.
No,
and not,
no,
not
yeah,
the,
it
not
is.
the 20-year?
But the town did not receive, let me read you. That piece of paper I gave you. In 2005, which Don was talking about there, the lease rate was established at $13,623.43 for 20 years. And it was reduced because of the problems that Mr. Falvey was had been brought forward here to $6,776.89 a year in October of 2007. The committee recommends approval of this, and the board and selectmen do as well as meeting later in the year. On November 13th, 2007, the board approved the lease reduction to $6,776.89. In June 5th of 2008, the leaseor, Mr. Falvey, submits a letter to the town manager requesting a further reduction to the lease rate of $1,000 a year. And going on through, there's no signed, nobody's real sure how we got to the $1,000 a year. But what the FAA is upset about is they paid 90% of the cost for the airport. And they expect us to do a certain, take certain responsibilities as far as keeping it going and the monies that come in. And what their issue is that we've been now since 2005 not getting basically $14,000 a year.
That was based, as I understood it, with the full operation of 3 large hangars, that would be the fee that came up through whatever system there was. And then as we couldn't build anything, it became apparent with at least the airport committee that, there's just no money there.
And I completely understand, and I know they did too, but the FAA doesn't understand. The FAA, their concern is for the future of the airport.
They think they have a better future with immediately backing out
Yeah.
and finding somebody new.
Yeah.
Who's that new person that can magically come up with a bunch of
Well-
hangars for the town?
No idea.
I don't either.
But
Most of us.
but we will be fine, but the town will be fined by the FAA if we don't do what they told us to do.
I don't want that.
That's what I want to know, what does the FAA want us to do at this point?
They basically they want us to make this null and void, make it official, because by non-compliance, by not paying what the lease rate was when it was originally formed.
Okay. So this would terminate his lease
Yes.
at the airport completely?
Completely.
See, I have a hard time realizing, and I don't think I was on the board in 2007, I know I wasn't, why the board would lower your lease rate if we have to justify to the FAA. That's why I'm trying to figure out why a board would even lower it down to 6,000. And then a few months later, 6 months later, you come down and wanted the board to reduce it to 1,000. And it doesn't look like there's ever a vote recorded
Right.
that they did do that. So basically, we, I don't want to say cheated, but we did not fulfill our obligation to FAA with the almost $14,000.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't aware of any more than you at that time. These are all bills
But
that the
if
town
Mr.
sent.
Falvey, you signed the contract.
Pardon me?
You signed the contract, that's the only one you signed, was
Yeah.
for that 14,000. And none of the others were signed, and you refused to sign 3 new ones that were drawn up for you.
I don't agree with that at all. I've never seen any 3 other contracts.
Well, I got them right, I
signed.
got them right here.
Nobody's given them to me.
Well, your lawyers sure were supposed to.
I kind of beg pardon on that.
No, I,
Jim Gallagher right on top of this stuff. If we
What?
were obligated to sign
Okay,
something,
yes.
What would be the consequences to the town of Wiscasset at this point in time from the FAA if we do not do what they want us to do?
I'd have to pull out the regulation, but I can get it for you. I don't have it right now.
I mean,
But I'll tell you one thing that I think that they would approve of, is that if we give Mr. Falvey, say, 9 months to have a project started, and if he doesn't have it going in 3 months, in 9 months, then we shut him down.
just a minute. Kim?
Do we have, is there a big demand for this land? Like if we shut him down and he goes away with the $6,776.89 he pays,
He's
or
not paying that.
$1,000 he
He's
pays,
paying
whatever
$1,000.
he's here, are there people lined up who wanna develop that?
No.
That's the whole problem.
So, I would like to see the regulations from the FAA.
Me too.
I'm pretty frankly tired of the FAA having this stranglehold on us for this airport that we don't even need, that we're stuck with. And now we're gonna ruin this guy. I don't know, I feel a little bit upset.
I don't
I'd like
agree
to
with
see
that.
the regulations.
We're not ruining this person.
Well, all right, maybe I speak too strongly. I tend to do that when I get excited with that. But I would like to see what the regulations are. I wanna know, I used to be a federal grants accountant, and there should be a circular, and I wanted to see that circular and read it myself, that says that they have that kind of power over us. That they can tell us who we can and cannot lease our land to,
They
and for
can.
how much. Well, let's see it.
I will.
All right.
But I have a very hard time with the $1,000, going from almost $14,000 down to $1,000. I kind of have a hard time dealing with that. I don't know how that happened.
it happened because the economy and the Brunswick Naval Air Base sucked up everything when I was halfway through the project. Pure and simple.
Then why didn't you
Had to
sell?
go.
Then why didn't you sell?
Why didn't I what?
Sell it. Get rid of it.
Sell it. Who the heck's gonna buy it? Anybody that had an interest in a hangar, boom, they got one free and went to Brunswick. It was a horrible situation. Horrible for me to pay the $24,004, not counting this year, ever since, after putting $300,000+ into the second set, which I should obviously have not done. It's causing me all this aggravation and money, and you can imagine what the family thinks about spending that kind of money and watching going down there. I understand if you're up against a penalty with the FAA, that you're in a tough spot, and you gotta say, sorry, Mr. Falvey, you're out of luck. I understand that, because apparently that's the last word. Big government again steps in and crushes the small guy.
Okay, but yours isn't the only lease that there's a question, right?
Right.
They're questioning. There's one here that, he executed for development of a hangar, and the hangar was never built.
Right, and he quit paying, so that's an easy one.
Okay, that's an easy one. He quit paying the lease?
He just quit paying the lease.
Okay. The hangar contains a non-aeronautical use. I think that's the one for Pellegrin.
Mm-hmm,
Is that?
that's correct.
And that, backing up on that, that was, I sold that piece as the first hangar after this. I gave the town the section of land, the snow removal building. That was the first person that actually came and negotiated and didn't say, oh, I'm running over to Brunswick to get a free one. But I am gonna go right over the other side of the fence and talk to the town, because there's more land I can lease over here. Now, I know darn well what he's gonna spend trying to get the thing to the point where he can even go and get a building permit, because I just went through it for 2 or 3 years. But it's a lever that I wanted the selectmen and the airport committee to take that out of there if you're gonna help me get this thing developed. I don't need people coming to me who want a hangar, so well, the town's gonna let me rent this one next, right here. What the hell am I even doing this for?
All right, please. But in this letter from FAA, it says the lease is based on aviation rates. Now, do they want us to change the rate? Is that what they want?
On the one for Peregrine?
Yes.
Yes, and I'm working on that right now.
Okay, so you're working on that.
Trying to figure out what the going rate would be.
Okay.
It was built as a hangar and used as a hangar.
The first one, it says,
Out of it.
all leases exceed 49 years, 2 of which are 100 years. What's the issue with that? I don't understand.
The FAA is not, they don't want leases more than 30 years, maximum. But they're not going to be able to do anything about that.
Okay,
I mean,
so
that's done.
that's, we don't have to worry about
No.
that. Okay, we don't have to worry about the one that never built the hangar, because he got rid of that. So the only one we have is you. So back to
Here to
you
say,
again. Okay.
I'd like to keep it going. Even at $1,001, it's a stretch after, you gotta think about, I'm not BSing you when I tell you I got 300+ thousand, and I got all the paperwork. If you wanna hire somebody impartial to go through it with me, but I don't think that matters to anyone. And I have paid $24,003 to the town since then to keep this thing going. It's not like the town lost out.
Well, I think what I would like to see is I asked you what would happen to the town if we did not do something about this situation, this one hangar. I think I'd like to know exactly what our dealings with FAA would be, well, how they would come back to the town.
Okay.
What's our
I
obligation?
thought I had.
What's our obligation?
Yes, exactly what is our obligation if we don't do anything, if we just continue letting it pay $1,000, whatever, a month, a year.
Yeah, and I would like to see where it's written, like, is it just in a standard office and management and budget circular, or is it in a grant document? Like, where does FAA have the right to tell us who we can and can't lease to? I just want to read it myself.
In the dollar amount, we, Ed's company, remember upstairs at the airport, that was, the FAA never questioned us on that. What was it, $600 a month or something like that? It was peanuts, but you know what I mean? But we did it because at that time, Kim, in 2016, which I remember, is that we had 58 homes here. Remember, we were trying to sell them, we were trying to, there was a lot of, like you were saying, that the bottom dropped out of everything. And I would like to, I agree, I would like to see what it is that the FAA wants from us and then present it to you, you know, and move forward.
Yeah, I mean, if you're locked in by the government and you're forced, or you're gonna get a penalty, obviously I would take the hit and step back and walk away.
Because again, I'm going to reiterate, it concerns me that the Board of Selectmen did not question lowering your lease rate. I mean, if they went into a lease rate at almost $14,000, why they would, 2 years later.
Judy, I do remember out at the airport, there was never any FAA regulations when we rented anything out there. We did some things out there. Remember, you needed a new furnace, and we were doing anything we could to fill the spaces out there. So I can definitely see us lowering,
But my question is, do we have the right to do
Oh, right, I didn't.
Do we have the
No one
right
ever
to
told,
do
but
that?
what I'm trying to tell you is when I was sitting here as a board member, what we were trying to do was to keep the airport, going. And nobody at that point, whether it be the town manager or legal counsel, ever came to us and said, you can't do that. I remember lowering all kinds of stuff out there you know what I mean, to rent space, to fill space, so I agree with Mr. Falvey and Kim, that I want to see it in writing that we are mandated to these fees, because out of all the years that I've been here, no FAA member, we even negotiated with cutting the tree. None of this has ever been brought up to us as far as our rental agreements, you know, until right now.
All right, those are the, excuse me, those are the two things that I'm concerned about. The right to lower the rate, if the town does have that right.
Well, I think you do, but they were never signed, not for that $1,000. There was never an agreement made. I don't know if that was a handshake or something like that, but there's no.
It would have had, we would have had, they would have had to come before the board, and the board would have had to vote on it. I mean, I wasn't on the board back then, so I don't know.
I was when you came, but you know, before it, and I don't remember, but it says it was going to come back before us, and it never did.
I wonder how I got a bill for every year for $1,000.
I wonder as well. I
didn't make it up.
Yeah, no.
Came out of every year. I think they were glad to get it because we were scrounging around trying to keep it alive.
We were, absolutely.
And to me, it seems reasonable and practical that the town would try and work with you, because if your venture takes off, then everybody wins.
Yeah, there's.
And if you go away, then it's like what Ed's worried about with the solar farm. We've just got this half-finished project sitting there that is our responsibility.
Yeah, and apparently, if there's somebody out there that's got better connections than I do, you know, can take it over after I walk away from my huge commitment, well, I guess I lost.
So, Rick, can you give us that information, say within 2 weeks?
Oh, easy, yes.
Okay. All right, so I'd like to table this for 2 weeks, to have Rick come back with us with that information before we make a decision on this.
That's fine, but I mean, I share some of your concerns. I was on the board in September 2013 when we signed the agreement for $13,600. And I'm shocked that it's dwindled down to $1,000.
I mean, 2005. You said September 2013.
This was 2007.
No, I said I was on the board in 2005 when the original contract was signed.
Oh, you were, okay. I
For
was.
$13,000, and now it's dwindled down to $1,000.
That's my question. That's one of my questions is, do we as a board have a right to do that?
Even if we did, I wouldn't vote to do it.
Well, might not have been the board that made the deal.
I think $1,000 is, you know, from 13,000, that's a joke. I wouldn't consider it.
Because I'm concerned about other people out there that are renting hangars. Are they paying $1,000?
Well, the T hangars, which Mr. Falvey built, theirs was 14,000, and we've been receiving that money every year from the T hangars.
That's where the figure came from. We based it off of that experience. Yeah. Assuming we were going to build it and fill it in, because at that time, when I committed to it, people wanted hangars, and no way would the Navy walk away from this place.
Okay, I'm gonna, Catherine, do you want?
I just want to say that I think if we can possibly do it, or have John do it when he talks to any of these FAA people, maybe explain the situation. I mean, this man has invested a fortune in this town and has yet to receive any return, no fault of his own.
And no fault of the towns
Yeah,
either.
no fault of the towns or the taxpayers or whatever, but I just want to make sure we aren't, you know, throwing them under the bus, as the saying goes. I think we ought to definitely look at the FAA stuff, and I'd like to know when they came up with this rule that you're talking about. Is this something new?
No.
Since nobody seems to know anything about it?
Well, there's all kinds of strings attached
Oh,
to
I'm
that
sure
here
there are.
board, and
Yeah, I'm sure there are. So, anyway, I just want to make sure that we do our best by Mr. Falvey.
Thank you. Does the FAA know I gave them that section for the snow removal building? I had a lot of money in that piece of land.
Okay, is the board in agreement to have Rick come back in 2 weeks with the information from FAA?
So,
one caveat, do you think we could get the information prior to the meeting?
Oh, sure.
So we can read it before we get here?
If you get hold of them tomorrow, can talk to them, I mean, we can talk here, when we work, we're happy to sit in.
And then can we not sign another grant with them without like really going through it because we, you know, the campground, now this.
So we don't need a motion for that?
No,
Okay.
we've tabled it already.
We've tabled that one.
I'll take back the,
Yeah, you
these
better
payments.
say one document.
Yes, we'll
That-
take
Do
those
you
back.
need the,
Take care.
All right.
do you need this, because she has a copy.
Okay.
You may need it, you never know.
I'll leave it there.
Thank you. You want to hang on to it?
You take anything that you want.
You want that back?
I just want one copy.
No, no, and like I said, I can't write it in stone, but I know that we made some, not only knee-jerk decisions out at the airport, but desperation ones, dude. So I agree with Ben, $1,000, it doesn't sound right to me, you know what I mean? But that's what I
Okay, shall we continue?
Thank you, folks.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
All right, the next one is to set budget schedule.
I've got almost all the budgets from almost all of the department heads already. And as you know, the department heads have been just making preliminary presentations to the budget committee because I figured that was shorten the time that we all have to spend bringing everybody up to date. Now, the final numbers haven't been submitted to the budget committee because candidly, I haven't dug into them, because they all are, plus I've had a few other things going on. So, last year, the budget process started a bit late, and it appeared that Mondays and Wednesdays at 5 p.m. seemed to satisfy everybody. So my question for the board is, when do you want to start the process? I think next week would be too soon, but maybe the week after.
I would suggest we, as much as possible, follow the same schedule as last year.
Yeah.
It seemed to work pretty well.
As soon as you can get it together,
As soon as possible.
and we'll do Mondays and Wednesdays at 5.
I
You
cannot
can't
do
do
Wednesdays.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm
that's
sorry.
right, that's right.
Monday and Thursday?
It's fine with me.
At this point, it's all sent to me.
Monday and Thursday? Okay.
I'll talk to Zach, well, Bill's here, but I'll talk to Zach Gray and send an email in the morning. Okay, that's that one?
Okay. Town managers report.
Yeah. The biggest news we have is that our treasurer, who's been with us a number of years, Bernice Boyce, has got a position in Winthrop, I called it Wyndham at one point, for which I apologize. Her last day of work will be January 13, which is Monday, a week away. And so obviously I suggested the board accept her resignation with regret and offer her best wishes and so on. She's done a nice job here. She's cleaned up a lot of what needs to be cleaned up, and I think it's one of these situations where I've done that, can't take it any further, and fresh opportunities. So obviously we thank her for what she has done and wish her well going forward. So accept the resignation with regrets.
I will,
Go ahead, Jim.
I'll move to accept the resignation of regret. I would like to basically echo everything you just said. She really helped turn the whole process around.
Yes, she is. And I will
I
second it.
rejoined the board 5 years ago. For the first 4 years, we struggled, and when it got to commitment time, we crossed our fingers and hoped for the best.
Yeah.
This year, she could tell us what the budget would be, and she kept it to the 10th. She knew what she was doing.
She
And
done a lot of
I
errors.
hope that we remember that going forward, and we hold other people to the same standard that she lived up to.
Wait a minute, all those in favor?
She's willing to help us in a transition. I haven't worked out the details yet, but I will come back to the board with the specifics, which I'm sure you'll have no problem with.
Okay.
And so that's that item. Now, since she will no longer be treasurer after January 13, I'm putting my head on the plate saying, temporarily ask that you appoint me as treasurer until we figure out where we're going after.
I thought managers couldn't be treasurers.
The new boss is treasurer. I mean, I could.
I should check it out, I just want to be sure.
Well, I could put Kathy forward. I talked about it with her, you know, it doesn't,
Wait, what?
It's gonna be very short.
so.
Period.
But we can't operate, technically, we can't operate without a treasurer. Because
Legally, we can.
legally, we can't.
So we have to have somebody in that position on the 13th, on the 14th. So we have to have somebody.
It'd be Kathy or Ellen, really, or Molly, or me, but we can do Kathy, that's fine.
I mean, you can check with MMA, I just don't feel comfortable with the manager being the treasurer.
Okay.
Well, we have to make this decision tonight. I mean,
Well, you can make a motion that if the manager can be treasurer, based on what MMA says, then it could be me, otherwise it would be Kathy.
Does it make sense to be Kathy? Like, isn't she really busy being your assistant?
she
What
is
about
that.
the person who's doing the accounting? It would be
Yes.
temporary? I feel like it should be someone who's doing the bookkeeping and accounting.
The others
Oh, right.
don't really want to.
okay, I'll make a motion to have John check with MMA to see if the manager can be the treasurer. If he cannot, then we will go with Kathy.
And have we
Second.
posted it? Are we looking for there's no other way to find an interim?
What, an interim treasurer?
Yeah. I don't know if that exists. You know, there's like all these interim superintendents walking around and interim town managers walking around. You can't find someone like that. There's all these retired
It goes back to
people
the
like
old
walking
days
around
when they
looking
were
for,
elected.
you know, per diem gigs. Ed.
By the time we found somebody like that, we'd have moved on past me or whomever. I mean, we're talking about weeks until
Okay.
we settle things out, because we are going to have to talk about reallocating duties and so on. So,
I was just gonna say, Judy, I'll second your motion. I feel extremely comfortable having John be
Okay.
there. That's,
yeah,
that's
subject to MMA.
correct.
All those in favor?
Having him check out MMA as well.
And if it's not, if he cannot do it, then it would be Kathy. There'd be the interim treasurer.
I guess, I just don't know why we wouldn't pick someone from accounting, because they said they didn't want to.
And I have a
Gee, I
vote.
never got to pick my jobs. Work.
Well, I think
You said it would just be a
No,
matter of weeks, it would just be.
I think it's, I think
Another
it's just
week.
might be a time that maybe John needs to look at some of the duties of everybody, and maybe we can shuffle some around, and,
I think that's gonna happen.
Yeah,
you
that'd
know,
be,
I think that's where we need to go at this point.
I've started the process, looking at job descriptions.
Don't we have like account pros or account temps or something like that in Maine? You can't get like temporary help?
By the time we track somebody down.
I just feel like we need a, you know, we can't just have one of you absorb that whole job, it's like a full-time job.
No, but,
According to Denise, it
I mean-
isn't. She said she could do
Well-
everything that needs to be done in a day.
Well, she knew what she was doing.
Yeah.
I mean, she was an auditor for many years, she had a ton of experience, she probably could, but.
Okay, we're going off searching here. We
Yeah.
have a motion.
I think that we voted on it. I think
It's been
consensus out.
seconded.
I was just clarifying what the motion was. I don't know, maybe I'll just abstain. I don't feel like I understand the.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion? Against, abstain, okay.
That's fair enough.
I feel like it should be one of the accounting people.
Yes.
And Ed agrees with me. I do, I feel like it should be an accounting person.
Well, it's someone who's willing to do the work and someone who doesn't want to do it because they
I'll
have
come
so
down and
much
do it.
else to do.
Is Ted still here?
Yeah, he is.
I am.
Okay, what's
Second.
You're the Brownfield.
Okay, had an email back and forth with Steve Dyer of Ransom Associates, and we're going to have that public meeting that I mentioned, which will be January 23rd. He's got some back and forth with DEP, but he should be able to give us the information for us to post the meeting maybe tomorrow.
What time?
The meeting is going to be at 6 o'clock
6 o'clock
on the
here.
23rd, yeah.
Okay,
And Kim asked if it would be recorded, and I said, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have a meeting at my son's
That's all
school.
right.
And I
That's
got
all right. So no, that's just a quick update. I don't have anything to add yet on potential ordinance revisions for June election. I just got busy between Christmas and the other stuff. So I'll put that on to next meeting.
Okay.
And so the next item on the agenda is the assessor's business.
Okay, we have an abatement, Lester P. Lock III, map R02, lot 023 for $398. And we have an abatement for prior year's taxes for Lester P. Lock III, map R02, lot 023 for $375.20.
I'd like to make a motion to take.
Wait a second.
vote.
Yes, sir?
Yes, I am Mr. Locke, this is my wife, Roxana Locke, so we'll be doing most of the talking because I can't see.
I do the paperwork in the house.
I think,
And our mortgage went up $61 a month. This is how I found out what was going on. I put in for the Homesteader Act, and it was canceled out. And I didn't know it until our mortgage went up. I come down and questioned it, and I found out you've been mailing our tax bill to our old address in Standish, and somebody assumed that we lived there, not here. That was 3 years ago, well, 3.5 years ago, we sold it.
So this is the reason for the abatement?
Exactly.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. And my question is, how is that handled so that I can get our mortgage back to where it should be? I've never even seen the tax bill. I only go by what mortgage company tells us.
I think that basically you've got the abatement, and once the board signs it, we can give you a copy that I think should.
So what does an abatement do? I mean, do we get the check back?
Yeah. Let me look at it here. So the abatement of 375 and 298. Yeah.
Yeah, in 2018, when I came down here 6 weeks ago to register my car and checked on this, all 3 of them were canceled. Last week we come down and talked to the tax assessor who kind of freaked out. And all of a sudden 18, he said was fine. And I said, well, all right, 17 was canceled. You did 18, then you canceled 19. Something doesn't add up. And I need copies of what was actually sent to the mortgage company, because I never received them. They were sent to that old address. And I don't know why, it wasn't just mine, it was a pile of letters that came back. I should have just taken it, I guess.
I've checked.
Okay, check on that for them, please.
But are you saying you don't want the abatement?
you want to hold these abatements until you
No, they
follow?
won't.
No, I need to pay the mortgage company to get our mortgage back.
Well, that's just what we were gonna vote on.
Yes, we're gonna vote to give you the abatement.
Okay.
All
Correct.
right, but
But do you want us to hold this, and are these good numbers as far as you're concerned, or
I have
should
no
these be
idea, because
bigger?
I've never seen the tax bill.
But like I said, do you want us to wait on this abatement?
No?
No.
I guess I'm confused what you're asking.
I still need copies of what was that, we were actually taxed to see if it matches what my mortgage company.
Oh, I know,
what is happening, I think she's
No, I
saying,
get it, but I'm just saying.
she's not getting a tax bill. It's going directly to her mortgage company.
Right, no, I just want to make sure that we're doing what's
But this abatement is gonna correct that tax bill.
I'm
Correct.
hoping, yeah, I'm just wondering what happens to 2018, because it was, 6 weeks ago, it wasn't taken care of.
Well, that's why I'm wondering, do you want to take care of it before we vote on this?
I can take care of it afterwards.
Yeah.
I think we should vote on this.
Okay.
I think
no.
we need to vote
Well,
on
I was gonna make a motion to take them both at the same time, so that's what I'm questioning, what the concern is.
So is that your motion? That's your motion, that we take both of them at the same time?
Correct.
I'll second it.
Yeah.
Okay,
I just have a,
yes, Ben?
we brought this up before, this thing, it doesn't have any date on it as to what year it applies to. I'm assuming it's this year, but it doesn't say on it, and it should.
It should say what year.
The 375 is for 17.
The 375 is for 17. And the 398 is for what year?
That I don't know, but you're right, the years should be, they generally are. They generally are.
Well, it should be, because it leaves people like me confused, because.
Because I'm wondering if we're giving them an exemption for the 398 on the 18th.
That's what I'm,
2018.
that's what I'm wondering as well. That's what I wasn't
I'm
questioning
confused.
you
No, I'm
whatsoever.
confused.
I
It was
just,
6 weeks ago. It was
I don't mind giving the abatement, but I'd like to have it clarified myself at this point.
That's all I'm asking
This
for.
is for 2017,
I'm sure this one doesn't have.
Right, but
and the other one
this
does.
one does not say what year it is.
The homestead thing? Yeah, I applied for it in 2016.
Can we approve this and then?
Let's see, there was a prior year,
And I was told it was
and this one
approved.
just
I just found out.
doesn't say anything.
Because they were,
It's-
my neighbor there, because it's
I
not
assume
there.
it was current, but it doesn't
So
say.
they want to make sure that
This says prior years?
This is
The
correct.
second one
It
is
was
the
in
prior
last
year,
week, all said
and
2018.
the other one,
But I
I
didn't
would
see
assume
it.
is current year, that would make sense. But
Then
it doesn't say.
2018 is still missing.
I think the one for the 375.50 is for 2017.
Right, and then 398 is that
I'm-
19 or 18?
You can't really say it's for 2018. I would assume it is, but
It can be
because it doesn't
calculated,
state it on here that it's 2018, that's the issue I have.
I can find out in the morning, but it does say current assessed value, so I'm assuming it's.
this year.
This year.
But I can easily
So
find
this
out.
would make you straight as far as exemptions for 2017 and 18 by these two.
Oh, okay, and then 19, I know you've paid 2,900 so far, because I just pulled that off the computer.
Yeah, you'd be unlikely to be behind on 19.
You won't be behind.
You won't be behind.
Okay.
Okay.
And I would.
I just need to be able to straighten out, we haven't paid the mortgage this month, and it was really hurting, that extra money.
So, that address 537 Willow Lane is your current mailing
It's
address?
where we've been since October 19, 2016. We sold Standish House before that.
I can remember registering her to vote the last election.
Thank you.
And you applied for the homestead exemption you
I
have?
did, I brought it in early, and then I came and made sure that it had been approved, and I was told it was. I just got it 6 weeks ago.
What's a good number to catch you? I could find out. Just the best phone
Yeah,
number?
687
687
8373.
8373.
That's not home phone.
Okay,
Home phone.
Okay, I'll find out in the morning.
so are we going to, do we have a motion?
We
You
did
have
have,
to take them together.
Okay.
And I
The
believe
amounts,
Catherine
and I seconded it with the amounts that are,
Okay,
listed.
all right.
Just so we-
Any more questions?
should we vote on it now? or-
I think we need to vote on it now.
Okay.
I think it's current year and 2017. All those in favor? 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think your explanation is correct. Seems to me I remember an earlier time,
heard
Mary
Spanish
Ann
before.
telling us that the assessors don't want to do the current year,
Yes.
and we have to do the others. That's why it's 2 separate.
So do I come back?
No, you don't have to come back.
He's gonna
You're all
call you.
set.
You're gonna call her, right?
Yeah.
John's gonna call
I'll
you.
talk,
Oh, okay.
I'll talk to Molly and she's the assessor to the whole.
Okay, other board business. I'm going to make a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056A. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you.
Madam Chair, will there be a vote after the?
No,
Not expected, just updates on number of personnel.
there'll be nothing afterwards.
So,